ladies and gentlemen, we talk with Sietse Bakker. We already started a little. Sietse has COVID at this moment, but that's not the way. The reason why we invited him for this interview. But we invited him because he's the executive producer of the Eurovision Song Contest in 2021 and also in 2020. So, Sietse, does that make you the first executive producer of the Eurovision Song Contest for 2 consecutive years?
Well, before I answer that question, Hans, thank you for inviting me. It's great to be with you, especially now that I'm in isolation here in the attic. So it's good to be with you and with the BEA community. And yeah, to answer your question, I was not the first one to do it twice. There have actually been people before me that did it twice, but I was definitely the first one that had to endure a cancellation due to a pandemic that never happened before in the history of the contest.
Yeah, so you could not copy what you thought of the year before. You had, in fact, not the same projects that you wanted to dress up in a different way, but there were even 3 completely different horizons. I think when you started on thinking of this project in 2019, there was no COVID yet. What did you have in mind then?
Oh, exactly. When we started off in 2019, and in fact, you start the day after you won. It'd be good to maybe explain to all of you listening and watching that the system works like this. If you win the Eurovision Song Contest, you also have to host it. And not only that, you also have to pay most of the bill, which is a very sort of strange concept, especially for money-conscious event organizers. But this is the way it works. And the Netherlands had already been enjoying the generosity of other countries for the last 40 or so years. So it was finally our turn again to host it. And you start off with this idea that you have basically a bit less than a year to organize a contest, to do it well, and hopefully also do it better than the country that came before you. And then in March, like it happened to all of us, we were confronted with a quickly spreading pandemic, and I think it was right between the Euro football and the Olympics that the decision was taken to cancel the 2020 contest, and then we had to really look carefully if we could do it again in 2021, because that was not a given. It took a lot of effort, conversations with our insurance company, with the host city, the venue, with our key people in the team, to make sure we could keep everyone together to do it again in 2021, knowing that it would be under pretty challenging circumstances.
And keeping everyone together, you mean the whole team, keeping the whole team together?
Yeah, I mean, good people, especially the good people that we try to bring on board the team, they had jobs, and to step out of that job for a one-off, for an event like this, was of course a difficult decision for them. But then to suddenly have to decide, do I do this again for another year under challenging circumstances? That is not something we took for granted. But we were very happy that I think it was 99% of the team stayed on board. Mm-hmm. So we were very grateful for that. The city stayed on board. All the participating countries had full confidence in the way we approached it, and I think it was within 6 weeks that we were able to announce that we would host the contest again in 2021.
Okay, so in 2020, you did not know yet if it was going to be held in 2021.
No, exactly. And it was like I think all of us experienced, there was a lot of uncertainty. First of all, around, what would this pandemic look like? And you may remember yourself in the first few weeks, we all thought, this will maybe take a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, but around the end of the year, this should be over.
This will blow over.
Yeah. And so we had we had very good conversations with some of the top virologists here in the country to really understand what a pandemic means and what the long-term impact could be. Right now, that's sort of easy in hindsight, but at the time, no one really knew. So we said, if we commit ourselves to doing this in 2021, we want to be sure that the contest will take place no matter what. And that meant going back to the drawing board and working with different scenarios to make sure that we could be flexible all the way up to the event in May 2021.
Okay, so different scenarios at the ready. That means that you did not only make or create two different festivals, but in fact, you've created multiple festivals.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did. When the contest was cancelled, we had what we called scenario A. We had that practically ready. We were, I think, 3 weeks away from moving into the venue, starting our load in and build up and rehearsals. So that plan we had ready, and then we had to work on a concept, an event, and most importantly, 3 TV shows that would fit with the conditions of COVID measures, social distancing, testing, face masks, many hygiene measures, adaptations to the format. The third scenario we started to work on was a scenario that assumed there were travel restrictions. You remember from the early days of the pandemic that international travel came to a complete halt. There were a lot of restrictions on travel, especially from outside the EU to inside the EU. And we had about, I think, 12 or 13 non-EU countries participating, most notably Australia, with some of the heaviest travel restrictions in the world. And then scenario D was what we call the lockdown scenario, where we would be basically back in square one as we were in March and April last year, where we basically could not do any big TV production with that many people from a big venue, but where we had to scale down to a studio with taped video performances, no audience, no live entertainment, and really just look at it as a formality to do the contest, but nevertheless deliver. Because with a long-lasting format like the Eurovision Song Contest, you really don't want to put that on ice for 2 years in a row.
Exactly, and there's not only I realize now that there's not only a restriction in the number of people that you can have in the audience physically attending, but also in the number of people that you can have in your crew.
Yeah, exactly, and the Eurovision Song Contest is one of the most complex, if not the most complex, TV production in Europe and probably in the world. We had a crew of over 1,600 people working on the production, and it is really difficult to do it with less people. Also, the period of from load in to load out for just 3 TV shows is 51 days, and all throughout this period you have to first and foremost keep your crew healthy, and that is an incredible challenge because you're fighting against an invisible enemy.
Is this the first or the second time that you have COVID infection?
For me, it's the first time I managed to stay away from it for
to avoid it all this
nearly
time.
2 years. But sooner or later you're gonna catch it somewhere.
Okay.
But all get vaccinated, get that booster shot, and hopefully we'll manage to overcome this.
I hope to get my booster in January. I think I'm planned in January. I'd like to show you some pictures, Sietse, because I was wondering what kind of decisions you have to take, but also what you learned in the meantime, because there was 2019 going up for a normal version, a wonderful version, of course, of the song contest. And then there was pandemic, and then you had to do this remote version. And during the remote version, I think I can see that you learned something. So I'd like to show you some pictures. This was the 2020 version in Rotterdam. A picture of Rotterdam. This was the theme, Shine a Light, Europe, Shine a Light. Why this theme? Is this a pandemic theme?
when the contest was canceled, I think it was around the 18th of March, 2020. And part of our team, including myself, started to focus on, can we do this in 2021, and can we guarantee that it happens? And a small part of the team said, as we are around anyway, we may as well try to do something on the day of the grand final, the original date. Maybe we can do something to, bring Europe together in these difficult times, because we need that now more than ever. And also, very important, the contest relies very heavily on the contestants, the 40 or so countries that send their act, their singer, or their group to the contest. And for all those artists who work tirelessly to put their act together, who looked forward to these magical 3 minutes on stage, for an audience of over 200 million people, for them it was obviously a bitter pill to see that canceled. So we thought, can we do something to put the spotlight on them, to celebrate their creativity, their talent, and at the same time reach out to Europe and inspire someone. And from that emerged the idea to do a show called Eurovision Europe Shine a Light, which was a 2-hour live show we did from a smaller studio, but nevertheless with with only 6 weeks time and a small crew, I think of around 80 people, with lots of video connections. We managed to do that international show in all 40 countries. And despite this not being a real Eurovision final, there was no voting. We didn't pick a winner. We didn't think that was appropriate. We managed to reach an audience of 72 million people. And we were incredibly proud of that.
Impressive.
And it really gave us an energy boost to pull through and to do the real deal in 2021.
It was also proof that the world was still waiting for this Eurovision. They really needed it. So Shine a Light was, I think, the right theme there. I'm showing a picture of the presenters here, Sietse. So it was my impression, but I'd like to hear your opinion. It was my impression that you had 3 presenters at first, and then suddenly this online community, this social media world, proved to be at least as important as the physical world. So you added a 4th presenter to it. So it's 3 + 1 here.
Yeah, we originally had the idea to have 3 presenters for the TV show, and 1 presenter for sort of our online community. We really wanted to give this event a strong online presence, and also create synergy between TV and online. And for that, we found the perfect host, Nikki Tutorials, undoubtedly the most well-known, the most popular influencer from the Netherlands worldwide. She's done so many great big things, but always on YouTube. So for us, it was we took a big gamble by putting her live on television, and she did a fantastic job during Europe Shine a Light. So after the show, we approached her and her manager, and we said, you should be a 100% part of the hosting team, and not have this sort of 3 + 1, but really have 4 strong hosts. And I couldn't be more proud of how she did also this year. And I'm sure we're going to hear so much more from her in the years to come.
I think so too. And I will just in a minute show you a picture of 2021 and how what the difference is between the team in 2020 and 2021. This is the team 2020. So there's 3 presenters on stage in a completely empty venue. It looks marvelous, but it's empty. And you had, of course, I like this solution with the Wall of Fame, just to get some entertainers or musicians in your studio as well but it's all just pictures, of course.
Yeah, and aside from that, we did a lot of video. We did a lot of live connections with I think with Jerusalem, with London, with what else did we do? We did, I think, with Rome. We did a lot of live stuff and we had a great piece where we had the Rotterdam Philharmonic Orchestra, one of the best orchestras in Europe, to perform "Love Shine a Light," one of the iconic Eurovision winners from the '90s by Katrina and the Waves, to perform that from home, and combine that with images from landmarks from all across Europe, put them in light, and that together created one of the most magical TV moments of the year
Yeah,
last year. You can still look
exactly.
that up online if you like. I think we can share the link to the video with you
Oh, that's nice.
later on.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to put that in later on. That's nice, and but it's also a proof of the remote quality of the of that version, that edition of the song contest. What we see here, and I tried to find you, and I think I spotted you here.
Yeah, correct.
That's you. Yeah,
that's me.
This is the crew, right? 2020.
Yeah, this was the 2020 crew that did all the hard work, and we managed to get through that production without a single COVID infection. So
That's great.
our measures worked. At the time, we didn't have face masks yet as part of the sort of standard policy. In 2021, that was a bit different. We'd been working with FFP2 masks for 51 days at the time.
But by spreading your arms, you kept the social distance of 1.5 meters at least.
Well, you want to show a bit of respect and a little bit of also show people that you make an effort and not do this sort of cramped up crew picture.
Yeah. And it's a nice picture as well. So let's look at 2021 here. This is a completely new theme, Open Up. Very hopeful theme.
We actually chose the theme already in 2019, in fact, because what we wanted to reflect was that we live in a world where you see a lot of polarization, and an increasing amount of people have difficulties listening to one another, and we were considering what is freedom of speech worth if no one else listens. So our message to Europe and the world was open up to each other, open up to different views, different opinions, and openness is and that is it's a very Dutch thing, and we wanted to inspire Europe with that message, and we couldn't imagine in 2019 that 2 years later opening up would get such a different meaning, but thankfully we could, and thankfully we could do the big shows that we dreamt of, with a live audience, and with nearly all contestants on the stage.
There's a new dimension to it. So this is the stage, this is the team, and Nikki Tutorials is fully part of the team, as you can see here. There's 4 presenters instead of 3 + 1. This is the venue, and you have this solution with the booths for the entertainers, for the musicians, and the audience that's around it. And there was I think, pretty small place for the AV people in this room.
We actually had, except Australia, we had all countries present. We normally you have our audience on the floor. It's good for TV. It's also good for your ticketing revenue. But because of the COVID measures, we thought it wouldn't be wise to do so. We wanted to create this sort of big green room style feeling, but allow for a bit of social distancing also between the delegations. Normally, this venue, Ahoy in Rotterdam, which is the perfect venue for an event like this, could hold up to 16,000 people. But because you have such large stage, you use the entire floor. You have so much light, video, camera positions, and then because of COVID measures, we ultimately had 3,500 people in the arena, all tested prior to the event. Still a crew of 1,624 people, and the biggest front of house, from where this picture was actually taken, the biggest front of house that the venue had ever seen. I think it was 3 floors, and there were like 60 people working there around the clock.
Okay, in another picture, I think I just saw a very small part of that. Then it looked small, but it's impressive. So let's look at another picture, because this is the same picture, but then in a digital way. This was another world that you discovered here.
Yeah, normally for the local public, as well as of course for sponsors and partners, we do a Eurovision Village, an activation for the entire 2 weeks of the event, somewhere in the heart of the host city. And because of the COVID measures, that was unfortunately not possible. So the city of Rotterdam really showed all their power in short time to build this sort of virtual environment where you could go and watch live performances, meet the partners, meet fans, enjoy the music. They did podcasts, events like we do right now, and it brought together more fans actually than you would normally do in a physical world.
Yeah. So this
and
was
even
also...
though I think we can all agree that a sort of a physical experience is nearly unbeatable. It was really appreciated by fans in Europe and around the world, and they got some awards for this. I think they got some Lovie Awards, nominated for a Webby. So this was really state of the art.
And I think maybe the circumstances were a driver to speed up this development as well, because I think without COVID there might have been something like this, but not as elaborate or as high quality as this. And this is also a nice new stage, of course. So you made a stage out of the whole city, and what I thought was impressive was the number of rooftop performances.
Yeah, we thought, how can we still bring life to what is normally a very lively city, a very diverse city, a city that deserves to be shown. Having lived in the Rotterdam has lived in the shadow of Amsterdam as the capital for many decades. But Rotterdam is really worth to watch, and it's really worth to visit. And we thought, how can we show that to the TV viewer, and at the same time infuse some energy into the city? And we did that with rooftop performances throughout the city of Eurovision evergreens, and that really gave a very energetic performance.
Yeah, also enlarged your stage, of course, not only within the venue itself, but the whole city took part of it. These were the winners. So Italy
Måneskin, yeah.
2022 in Italy. Are there any...
Will be held in Italy indeed. I think the last time it was held in Italy was in 1991. So they've waited for a long time as well, 30 years to host it again. And broadcaster Rai, the Italian public broadcaster, has ultimately decided to host the 66th Eurovision Song Contest in the city of Torino. Well known, of course, for hosting the Winter Olympics in the early years of the millennium. And we're really eager to see what they come up with. I know they're working really hard right now. Also under challenging circumstances, because the pandemic is not over yet.
Mm-hmm. And do you think they have learned something from your struggle and from your overcoming the challenges? Or maybe to put it in another way, are there any tips or pieces of advice that you would give them?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good tradition that if you hosted the contest, you sort of hand over everything you've learned to the next, so they can do an even better job and take the contest forward and make sure it lives for many decades to come. I think if there's one thing that we learned over the last 2 years is to be prepared for everything, because if you are, then nothing really is a crisis. And that may sound odd, but we're all at the beginning. This pandemic was a crisis for many of all of you as well. Probably the biggest professional crisis that we've ever seen. But now that that we're sort of almost 2 years into it, our advice was don't consider it a crisis. Assume that it's still around. Develop scenarios that give you 360-degree flexibility all the way up to the very end. Not only in the way you organize yourself, but also in the way you budget, in the way you manage expectations, and make sure that all your stakeholders know these scenarios. Because I don't think anyone blames you for not being able to do your plan A if the pandemic takes a surprise turn.
Mm-hmm.
But it is unforgivable not to be prepared for these kind of eventualities, and that's what you will be judged on by your stakeholders, and most notably your visitors, your ticket holders, or in case of television, the TV viewers.
So what you're telling us is it's unforgivable not to have a plan B?
Not to have a plan B. And, if there's one thing I can share here is the question I got a lot before the 2021 contest, which was, what is your nightmare scenario?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, journalists, assumed, even people on the team assumed that the nightmare scenario would be Plan D, which was our lockdown scenario. And I always said that's not the nightmare scenario. The nightmare scenario is if we deliver the event, that we look each other in the eye and have to realize we didn't do the best version possible under the circumstances. So our goal was always, the goal was not Plan A, because we didn't have control over the circumstances. The goal was to do the best possible under the given circumstances, and we felt we did. Now it's obviously up to the viewers at home to judge that, but looking at the ratings, looking at the feedback we got, we hopefully succeeded in doing that, and we definitely hope that our Italian friends will succeed as well in 2022.
Thank you very much, Sietse. And this is a piece of advice that not only applies to events in this scale, but also to very small scale, every scale, in fact, and every shade of hybrid, and in every circumstance, being hampered by restrictions of COVID or not hampered in a free world that's opened up. So have Plan B and Plan C ready. Don't be afraid to discuss with your stakeholders that there will be an extra plan at the ready when necessary or if necessary. And do your utmost best. That's, in fact, the advice that Sietse gives us here. Thank you very much, Sietse, that you wanted to share your story with us, especially in these circumstances that you're in the attic in a quarantine. Thank you very much that you wanted to add to our content program. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for Sietse, put them in the chat. We'll put them to Sietse and you'll get your answers later. And this is the end of our content program. But we're not at the end of the festival yet, because tomorrow, of course, there will be the fantastic award show. Dress up, make it an extravagant dress that you will wear tomorrow. Dress code is extravaganza. So see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock at the award show of the BEA World Festival. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
And Hans, before we conclude, let me also compliment you for your great job today. Normally there would be a round of applause right now for your hosting today. So thank you very much, and on behalf of everyone attending, applause to you as well.
Thank you very much, Sietse. That's very nice, and it was my pleasure. Thank you. So let's all applaud.